Welcome to the Tonhalle in Zurich. This is part of our ongoing series of discussions about great music and great people in Zurich. I'm Dr. James Isaacs from the Hulls School, and we have a wonderful panel here. First of all, we have Frau Ilona Schmiel, who is the new intendant of the Zurich Tonhalle Orchestra, formerly of the Beethoven Festival in Bonn. And we have Etienne Abeline, who is a fantastic violinist, member of the Lucerne Festival Orchestra and many others, but also involved in a lot of cutting-edge ways of sort of rebranding and representing classical music to different audiences, such as classic and club, and also involved in music education. We also have three students from the Hulls School. We have Nikolai Kohler in the white, who plays guitar, piano, and other things. We have Johannes Cuellar, who also plays guitar and also classical violin, and Bill Kirkby, who plays guitar and sings. So, without further ado, we want to talk about what's going on in Zurich, what's going on with the Tonhalle, and also bringing great music to new audiences in fresh ways. Let's start with you, Frau Schmiel. Tell us about, you're just coming to the end of your first season here, and what are your, you're following a very successful period with David Zinman, 19 years as a tremendous music director, but it's a new era. Talk about what's going on, talk about what your goals and your visions for the orchestra are.
My first vision, thank you at first, I must say, for this wonderful possibility to speak to everyone with this prestigious panel. And I always like to have students beside me and young people, because then it's a very authentic way to discuss what we want to have and how we could build bridges. And also with Etienne, it's very nice because we met each other some years before, I must say, and it's wonderful to work with him together in so many fields. And we have already started some very good ideas, I guess. And to meet teachers who are so engaged, this is the future. And if I talk about what we are doing every day, then I took over this position as an intendant of the Tonhalle Orchestra and the Tonhalle Society because I was convinced, coming from a festival with the title of Beethoven, where everything should be possible, because I think in classical music, Beethoven is one of these composers who already and always was ahead of his time. And we could experience in these 11 years before many, many things where I thought I would love to bring these ideas and these new formats and as well these questions of how the future of classical music could be, that I could bring these new things to Zurich. And especially after such a decade of 19 years with such a famous and also a very successful, wonderful conductor, wonderful person like David Zinman, it was absolutely important to build a completely new team. Because, you know, we made a cut. I was succeeding Elmar Weingarten, so we're completely different generations. Lionel Branguet is even 50 years younger than David Zinman, so it's not just one generation, maybe two or three, depending how you count that. And we have chosen also another president who is very engaged for all the challenges which we have now and in the future. And I feel that it was the right situation for the next years to sit down 2 or 3 years ago when we were nominated and to think about how classical music could be in a city like Zurich, could be developed, but also in which ways we could be much more involved in being members of the city. As an orchestra, as musicians, as an organization which seems to be, we have a very high quality. We are, I can say, the top orchestra of Switzerland. But what does it mean also for society here? For you as students, what is your access to a classical way of orchestras? What does Etienne Abeline with all his activities? And for you as a teacher, how could you use us? So there were many experiences and ideas before, but I immediately felt we have to so-called fresh up what we do. And so the question always is, it's about creating atmospheres. Because if you have the best level on stage, but you don't have an audience which really feels that there's something very special built at the moment, maybe then you have an audience which is satisfied for the next 2-3 years, but then you will lose them immediately, because we all have offers a lot around of us, of other cultural institutions, of other activities which we can do. So there must be a need to attend a concert, to attend a performance, to come to the Tonhalle and to be welcomed. And this was the first thing what I felt when I arrived here. I was welcomed because I took over a very nice and very good position and I have a wonderful team. But I felt a bit lost also in my own audience at the beginning. And this has to do what you said when before. Sometimes the people are standing up or they show their emotions. And I had really to learn at the beginning that, of course, mentalities are different. And of course, we have a very international audience. But there was a bit more a distance between the stage, the musicians, and the audience. And my daily goal is, this is the daily goal, to bring our audience, our members, our musicians much more closer together. And I think this has to do with a lot of communication. We can do it via print media, we can do it in the internet, we can do it like today, that we are getting each other a bit or knowing each other a bit more. But it's really that you have to talk to the people in the dress rehearsal, that you have to talk to the people with whom you're sitting beside, very close in a concert, that you ask them, give me a feedback. This was it was a goal, and I must say after 1 year, nearly 1 year, I never got so many emails from people who are attending concerts. And at the beginning I was a bit, oh my God, they want to write everyone, and do they want to have answers really, or what do they want to have? And I found out that they always were a bit shocked at the beginning when I answered, I want to meet you, not I want to discuss with you via email, I want to meet you personally. I want to get in touch with you. I want to have an idea what are your wishes, what are your goals. But nevertheless, we are the persons who are responsible for the art on stage. So it's a dialogue, but I always make clear we are doing the programming. Also, if we are talking with sponsors, we are having this autonomy, we are authentic, and we are responsible for the highest quality. But what we should do and must do in the future and every day in all our orchestras, in all our concert halls worldwide, and especially in Zurich, is that we have to communicate in much better ways. Clearly what we want to do, clearly what the possibilities are, what is our relevance for next generations like you are sitting here, but also what can you do, in which way can our younger generations be involved in concert programs and processes. And therefore we invented many formats, and maybe we talk about that now.
Here's a question for you three. At Hulls School, when I took over the program, I immediately looked for some way to plug us into the Tonhalle to increase the education of our students. And we immediately discovered the Tonhalle late, and it's been a huge success to the point where our principal, Robin Hall, decided to have the school actually pay for the tickets for the students and for their parents, and we've had over 100 at the last two. So you three, yeah, that's a lot. I mean, when you think we have one person in 15 is from my school here, you know, it's quite amazing. But it's become actually kind of an event where people look forward to going, students look forward to going, and combine it with parties afterwards. Or how late were you here last time? Till 3:30? The janitor. So why don't you talk about it? Like, what is live music to you? What's the difference between going to a concert, seeing a live concert, as opposed to watching an MP3 or a DVD or some other way that you have access to music now?
Thank you. Well, I think the pure difference in the recording versus the live music is just the pure acoustics and the vibration that hits you when you listen to that. I mean, I could never get the pure feeling of the music when I sit at home watching a YouTube video of some concert, either classical or rock concert, whatever. But when I sit in either normal concert or like a Tonhalle late concert, really the pure, I can't say the largeness of the music, it strikes you, comes like a wall towards you and hits you, like the sound comes to you, and just it's all around you, and you can feel it, not only hear, you feel the music. And that's what differs for me from normal recording music to live music.
May I add on that? For me, hearing a concert is like watching a painting. I mean, you don't. I mean, when you hear a concert in the MP3, it's not the same if you hear it in real life. It's the same with the painting when you see it on a picture. You don't really. We don't see the depths in the different depths in the painting. You can't look a picture of a Van Gogh painting and say perceive all the different changes in colors and the dark spots and the light spots. And it's the same. It's the same with music. It's just you can really understand it much better. You really get engulfed by a special feeling.
What about this? When you are there, you actually see the performers who are creating this. A painting is painted, and there it is for all time. But until... I was just making the point that... yes, I was making the point that a painting is painted, and then it's there for all time on a wall, and you have to go where the painting is to see it. But we just heard a rehearsal of Strauss. Strauss wrote this music down, but it's up to the performers to actually bring it to life again and again. And it's very ephemeral. It goes by and it's over. But what is it like when you're at a concert and you actually see these people making this happen? Bill, what do you think about that?
Thank you, Dr. Isaacs. Well, the thing about the music and being in a concert is that you're there with so many people that actually you feel the atmosphere and you feel the emotion, you feel the energy in the room as you listen to all the different musical instruments and the big band, and you actually feel as if you're part of it. You know, you're not an audience member, you're actually part of the music. That's what I said. And it's just absolutely amazing feeling. I think classical music nowadays is, as the previous point you beforehand, you said a lot about the next generation, how classical music is for them. Well, I think that classical music actually plays a big role in today's society. For example, I know of loads of groups, they actually listen to classical music, not maybe go to concerts, which I think they should more do, but online, for example, there are these mixes on YouTube, which is just classical music, and people listen to them to go to sleep, to study, to play video games. I know loads of people that do that, and I think classical music actually plays a more significant role than we think it actually does.
Just quick question. So you say you know a lot of people who listen to the music, but they don't go to concerts. Any idea why?
I think, well, one hand is that they're more comfortable in their own surroundings at home. Another part is the money, of course. But I think that when people hear classical music, it's the idea that they're people that go and listen to these concerts, you have to dress up fancy, you have to dress up nice, and you have to actually put on, not this persona, but you have to think that you have to portray a person that is wealthy, and for many people, if that's difficult, or they don't have the clothes, for example, or they don't have the accessories that all go with it, even though they'd like to go and they have the money, but they think that they're not worthy of going. I think that we should, as a society, more make classical music for the everyday, for the common folk. That's what I think we should more do if you want to spread these ideas.
That seems such a crucial point. How informal can we get with classical music? How much jeans can we go with classical music? Is classical music for jeans? I would say, yeah, why not? I mean, you have the music, and it can come to life anywhere. We go to clubs, and there's all this concrete on the walls, and you feel the sweat of the party of a few days ago, and it fits there. You know, you can play Brahms there, and actually you play Brahms slightly differently there. You actually look for different sound colors in that context. And so to have music here and all these contexts and lifestyles to connect to, that's the experimentation field that we're in right now, which I think is really exciting.
Tell us a bit about that. You're involved in a lot of cutting-edge projects of taking classical music into places where you wouldn't normally have expected to encounter it, such as taking it into nightclubs. What's happening with that? It's extremely successful and it works extremely well. Tell us more about that.
Well, I think to find an authentic connection to a certain group of people, because not all groups of people work differently. The ones you describe would be the ones that we would appeal to with this classical in club format. It'd be like, you come completely casual. There's a bar, you can hang out. There's no formality. There's no applause orders or anything. So that would connect well there. But there's many different groups, and to find connections to the disposition of perception of different groups of people, that's the thing that's really the challenge here, and to do it in many different ways. So yes, we're in clubs, for example. But that's only one example, and that's only one setting that this music and other music can become part of contemporary life and become part of the society, of a larger society.
Well, the thing that we have to decide as a community, if we want classical music to stay at that elite point, for those people who arrive in Lamborghinis and wear Armani underwear and all those things, or do we want it for the common folk? We have to decide if we want to lower it or we want to keep it at that elite level.
Yeah, I wouldn't say lower. I mean, I'm sure you would disagree also. High and low, I think these are just different ways that people feel comfortable. I'm a classical musician, and yes, I do go on stage with the suit and the tie and or the bow tie. But it's true, that's not completely me. That is a little bit acting. It's fine. I prefer to do it on stage than listening. But if I choose, my people, that would look very different. And to create situations which are like for the group of friends that I move in, that is really one of the passions that drives me.
The term classical music is a bit awkward. It was coined kind of in the late 1800s to refer to music which survived and was constantly being played, because there was a lot of music played all around town that would include music you never heard again. But the stuff that persisted, that always found new audiences, was then termed classical. And that's really, to me, the great thing about it, is that every generation it does find new audiences, new people from cultures all over the world. So we really do have something that everyone can love if we do a good job of introducing them to that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think you are absolutely right that every generation, every time has to find its own audience. But there's a huge difference, because today, through the internet, through social media activities, YouTube, and everything what we are doing also today, it's possible to give everyone access. And I would say classical music is not an elite thing at the moment, not at all. The quality must be elite. I'm absolutely behind that, because otherwise you won't never be hit by the music and by the power and the energy, but not the access. And so my aim, and one of the most important goals, is to really give a completely other image to what we are doing. So everyone is welcomed, and it doesn't mean everything for me if you're coming with the jeans or not. The most important thing is that you are coming and that you are enthusiastic about what we are doing, and that you could be also critical in a way what we are doing. But if we stop the process of being in contact, being in communication, then the classical music world, also live, will stop. And my generation and my positioning is, with all my colleagues, that we want to have it survive in the next generations. And Tonhalle Late is one of these examples where we mix really classical part, where we changed nothing from the ritual. And I must say, I was it was very interesting to see at the first beginning when I attended the first Tonhalle Late here, because it was invented 12 years ago from a completely other team. So, but I have then seen the young people, and I thought, oh my God, they are dressed up like going out into a club. Why? And they felt, when we also asked, should we ask the musicians sitting casual on stage? Then the youngest generation said to us, no, we want to have them as always, because it's our concert at 10 for 1 hour. And then afterwards we have a party and we do it in our own way. So these are always questions. And these answers are bringing us to the next point, in which way we develop new formats. The next format is Todd's Intermezzo, for example, which if you give me 2 minutes, I can explain what it is, because we felt extremely sad sometimes that we can't reach the people around here in that area, that they are just working here, that they are walking at the wonderful lake, there are some tourists, but that they can't come to a concert at 7:30, that they feel maybe it's too complicated to get a ticket, which is not, it's absolutely not right. But then we found out, okay, they are leaving their offices or their jobs or walking there around 5:30, 6 in the evening. And now we create a format at 6:30, just until 8 p.m. And we start with a surprise, because we will just present one piece, one really classical piece where I think everyone should once in his or her life should have heard, for example, Tchaikovsky Fifth Symphony or Schumann Piano Concerto. So there are many, many aspects. Just one piece with our chief conductor, Ilona Schmiel. And before, we engaged a very interesting person, because we tried to find out who could introduce the piece or who could speak to the audience. So we asked many, many persons. And then there was one moment here in my life in Zurich some months ago, and it made click, because then I got the idea to engage Hazel Brugger, to engage a young lady doing slam poetry. And I asked her, could you imagine to do 8 minutes before such a concert as a special act for 8 minutes? What you think when you have been in our rehearsals about the audience, about maybe Tchaikovsky, but maybe not. So she has a carte blanche. She will do something completely different. But for these at least 8 minutes, we will have a special act, break, then the orchestra is coming on stage. And we have, for example, Tchaikovsky 5. And afterwards, we all meet together in the foyer with just one drink. You haven't to pay anything extra for this drink, so it's absolutely easy. You pay one amount of money, you come, one drink, and at 8 we leave, and I'm sure you will have a great evening, and you can do what you want to do. And if you're coming, like having a run at the lake, I dream for this, that people are just deciding, oh, I'm coming from a boat or with my bike, and there are no rules. So it's just 90 minutes. Please have an intermezzo, a short break with us, and please just take your time to enjoy this in the way where you can really have an approach with a very high standard of music. This is the most important thing, a very high standard, I'm absolutely sure, of poetry slam, and then a good time for communication with all of us. So this is one of these formats which we invented, and we start on the 10th of December. Then we know more.
Sounds like a wonderful idea. Partly, music is ethereal, it's ephemeral, and there's no substance to it. It's very hard to get a handle on it, especially in such a visual culture that we live now. And some people, I think I'm going to go to a concert, it's going to be 2 hours long, and I'm just going to sit there and not understand anything. This gives them sort of a smaller piece and a chance to, okay, I can take one piece, someone will help me connect to it and help me process afterwards. I think it's a really great idea. What do you think?
I totally agree, and I think I would say there's a whole little community of classical music innovators who work mostly in independent formats. What we really enjoy seeing in these last years is institutions like the Tonhalle and other orchestras and cultural arts centers actually starting to experiment and to start trying things out. And it's really a development which is happening. The Tonhalle is doing it. Basel Symphony Orchestra has started their own club thing. In Winter Tour, we may work on Y nights coming up. So there's actually a cooperation of an orchestra with an independent player. And in many places in Europe and around the world, the same thing is happening. And that I find really encouraging. We are in a way a big experimentation lab where the different players try out different things and then also share these experiences in various places. I was just at a conference called Classical Next, where a lot of people brought in their experiences and shared them with colleagues. And so I think what's going on right now is really exciting. It's from this situation of, well, where is the connection to these various groups of people? And we need to somehow make sure to be relevant, to be on eye contact, and to make people feel comfortable, because that's the basis of the connection then to the music. And from that position of tension, now there's all sorts of solutions and starting to happen, and I think it's really a fantastic time for all this.
Well, the thing is, I think Poetry Slam is a fantastic idea. I watch quite a lot of it myself, and I think it's an amazing contrast between the actual classical music and the poetry. You talked about the younger generations and how they're interacting with it, and the whole club and the classical music thing. Well, they've actually managed to blend the two together in a category called electro swing, which is, you know, Pavlov Stellar. Maybe he's a famous this electro swing artist. Anyway, and he has combined club music and classical music together, and I think that's something fantastic. And I think that's really attracts the younger generation. I was going to ask my friends, how do you think that the younger generation will become more? How to attract them to classical music? How do you think, like, different forms of social media?
Well, I mean, one thing I also want to answer for Bill is that I think the only way I got in contact with classical music, I already got in contact in very early years. It was through my parents. And it was through the education and through learning that it is actually a privilege to open that door and discovering that whole new world, a very vast world actually. And then I think it's also important in schools that they open those possibilities to for young children, that they can go to concerts and discover that world. I think that would really boost the amount of young people coming to concerts.
And I also think it is why it is hard to attract teenagers, like in the 14, 15-year-olds to classical music, is because the way it is done, or it was done in the past, is their parents told them, "Oh, listen to this classical music; it is super cool." And children, teenagers in that age, are like, everything what my parents say is wrong, or it's not. I don't want to be like my parents are. So that's why they avoid it in that time, and then later on they may go on avoiding it because they think for themselves, "Oh, I don't like it," even though they haven't heard it yet. That's why I think it is good either to get introduced at a very young age from their parents when they're still your heroes, or by schools like ours where the teachers tell you it's good, or where your friends who've been there tell you it is a fun experience to go. And then we also introduce it to our generation, and we carry it on, and we go on in life with liking classical music.
What about the Tonhalle Late? You've been to several. How did that work for you as far as making this connection?
It worked quite well for me because before my first Tonhalle Late, I've never been to a classical concert before. That was one with the pictures. You remember that one yeah, that one. The explanation. They had a big screen over above the orchestra, and they displayed pictures there that fit to the music that was played. I think it was like a big storm and then nice weather again and the mountain climb, things like this. And that's when I first connected to classical music, because of course I heard it at home. My parents always put it on Sunday brunches, put it on. But at the Tonhalle, it really first connected to it. And then afterwards, they had the after concert, like the after party with the club atmosphere. And that is a really good combination, I think, because it attracts young people. Some people just come for the club afterwards, but to go there, they have to see the classical concert, and that gets them into the whole classical piece and artwork stuff.
By the way, that was the Strauss Alpine Symphony with over 500 photographs that this photographer had taken, I think, 4 years to amass this collection, including living in a tent in the Alps for several months. It was breathtakingly incredible, and really one of the best Tonhalle Lates I've ever seen, and they've all been good, but that one absolutely made a huge impression on me also. You were going to say something.
I was just going to quickly ask, they have to sit through a concert?
Don't get me wrong, I didn't want to say it that way, but but it is just when somebody goes to a classical concert for the first time, they don't know what to expect, and sometimes they get dragged there by their parents, and they think, "Oh, cool, I got to sit through this now." But when actually they open their minds up and see, "Oh, it is actually good what I see here." So I didn't need to sit through it and be bored. That's not what I intended to say.
I think he also means that going to a club for young people is something more familiar, so they can familiarize more going to a concert and knowing, afterwards there's something where I feel comfortable. There's a safe environment for them. I wouldn't say that a club is necessarily safe, but all right.
But may I ask you, when you recommended this Tonhalle to others, were there also some of your age who said, "No, I'm not interested"?
No, actually not. I mean, I presented it in the best way I could, and especially they were convinced after I said that there will be an after party. So that really.
Then my next question: if I would give you the chance for tonight to organize 30 other students who have never been in a concert for the Strauss program, do you think you could realize that?
I think it would be a difficult task, and I have to have a lot of free time now, like not going to school now. But I think it would be possible. It would be possible.
They're right in the middle of their exams right now, so it's a touchy time. Any other time, but we'll see what we could do. I had a really good idea and I forgot what it was. I did want to say that one really great thing about our school, Hulls School, is that Mr. Hulls really committed to the cultural education of the students. So every first-year student takes a semester of music history and appreciation with me, and another semester of art history and appreciation with Ms. Green, our art teacher. And so they have a sense of their history, a sense of their culture, a sense of what this music is. They may not like it. They don't have to like it. They don't have to like chemistry. They don't have to like mathematics. They just have to learn it. And a lot of them wind up liking it. Then we have the Tonhalle program, which has sort of taken on a life of its own. And there's a certain group of people that just love to go, certain people that aren't so sure. And those that do go end up liking it a lot. So that's very, very successful as well. So we're very, very fortunate to have all this going on at our school, plus the music club and a few other things. Etienne, you were going to say something.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, okay.
We communicate about that. Did you use some visuals of the music animation machine in your music appreciation class at school, and what was your experience with it?
Okay, Etienne is referring to an incredible invention called the music animation machine. He can actually tell you more about it, but it creates a visual computer-generated score of the music that anyone who doesn't read music can see the music in colors and shapes and patterns, and it moves across the screen in time, and there's a moment where the note that you're hearing is being highlighted, but you see what's coming. So you anticipate patterns, you start to recognize patterns. And for instance, I had to teach them about Bach, and of course if you teach them about Bach, you have to teach them about fugues. And fugues, it's not easy to even explain what a fugue is without getting into so much description that you lose them. But you play a fugue and it's all right there. And all of a sudden it gives people a visual connection to this very ephemeral sonic world that they're living in, and especially where our students are so bombarded by visual image, it's absolutely a key to what we're trying to do. Tell us more about what you know about the music animation machine.
Well, it's this amazing thing. My partner, I work with Stephen Malinowski, who's the inventor of the music animation machine, intensely for the past 4 years, and I'm responsible for live performances of it. But Stephen has a YouTube channel with over 130 million views, only classical music, over 100,000 comments, and most of these comments say, "Oh, finally I understand something. Finally I can connect." So I do think it's big, and And I was just curious to hear from you how it played out in your specific situation.
We do a lot with using art and architecture photographs from the period. I mean, if you play a Mozart symphony, that's one thing. But if you show them the gardens at Versailles, they can see the commonality of that aesthetic. Or if you show Baroque music with the inside of a Baroque church, this helps a lot too. And then you show them a painting by Caspar David Friedrich and you play Beethoven, all of a sudden they see. But having this has been absolutely extremely helpful. What about this? This is a question for the three of you. Music is extremely easy to get. I can pull out my iPhone and I can all of a sudden be seeing any conductor I want, doing any kind of piece I want on a tiny screen with a halfway decent speaker. Why should I just go to a concert and inconvenience myself when I can sit here and do this all by myself? There's a lot to it. For one thing, there's a sense of community that you lose when you're in your own world with your iPad or your iPhone. There's also this musical streaming service. The name is escaping me. They've just Spotify. They have come out and said that people typically listen to half of a song and then skip to another one. So 2 minutes and the next song, 2 minutes and the next song. At a concert, you actually have to engage yourself for a significant period of time. And I think this is helpful. What do you think about that, Bill?
Well, I think that because of all access to the internet nowadays, our attention spans are a lot less. So, for example, we get bored incredibly easy. I know as a younger generation, we do. I mean, I really like to listen to the end of a song to hear the conclusion, but I know a lot of my friends who just go 20 seconds and, I had enough of that song, and click next one. And I think part of a concert is actually to proving yourself that you can do it, sit through so many hours. I mean, for me personally, I really enjoy classical music, so for me it's no challenge at all. But for some people, I know it is a challenge, and I've convinced them. And afterwards, they come up to me and said, "Thank you, Bill, for inviting me to this concert. I've learned something about myself. I know that I can do it, and I'll definitely come to the next one." And I think that's great.
As I mentioned, in the middle of exams. Are your exams a bunch of quick 20-minute papers, 20-second papers, or do you have to be able to kind of think for an extended period of time about complex questions and complex issues, which may be helpful to know classical music to train your mind to work in that way?
No, they're not 20-minute exams. They're normally 2-hour exams or more, which is kind of annoying. And listening to a 1 hour or 2 hour piece where you need to focus all the time for all this time really helps you to focus on exams as well, because you need to think for 2 hours, and so you can also listen. If you can listen to one piece for 2 hours, you can also focus for 2 hours easily.
I also think so, because with classical music, it is no easy task to listen to it. You really have, to really enjoy classical music, you have to learn to understand the patterns in the different melodies. You have to see the different emotions it tries to emit and tries to make you feel. And I think it is very good to prepare yourself for an exam if you listen to classical music a lot, because you can really then in the end concentrate a lot better for a long time, and really try to understand something that normally other people wouldn't.
Here's another question. It has to do with community. You talked a lot about community, and that's a big important thing for you here, is how you relate to the community, how you're part of the community, how the community is a part of you. The problem with digital media is that you can do it all by yourself. Even around other people, you can go down your own little wormhole and never come back. My sister was at Disneyland recently, the one in California, the first one, near where I grew up. And she took a photo that she put on Facebook, speaking of digital media, but it was a group of friends waiting, and they're all on they're not talking to each other, they're not relating to each other, they're all on their phones doing whatever they're doing. Whereas when you come to a classical concert, you're part of a community. You're part of the community orchestra that's playing, the other people that are there, the people that put this whole thing on, and you come in together, you leave together. Tell us what you think about that whole, how community interfaces with this.
I think it's one of the best ways to reduce yourself just to concentration. And I must say, I love iPhones, but the isolation of these media tasks is great. And I must say, sometimes I found out that many people are not even anymore able to talk to each other in a very interesting way, not just saying, oh, I make the next photo, I make the next selfie, and this is on Facebook, but they don't think about what they will do in the future. So during a classical concert, you have also the possibility to be in a community, and if, this is absolutely important, if from stage coming very special energy to you, then the whole audience together with the musicians could start to fly in some ways. And these are these very, very seldom moments. So maybe in a concert season you will have this 5 or 6 times. And this is a lot. But if you make this experience once in your life, I think you feel you need it even more. And this is something which you really can just get, I'm sure, from arts. It could be music, it could be a picture, it could be a dance section, a ballet, also club experiment, why not? But especially with music, it's so direct. And if you're not sitting there in a distance, if you're not closing your heart, then it's possible really for deliberating your soul in some ways. And this is something which is maybe the most beauty thing which you can have nowadays, because you can everything do. You're so technically, every one of us is focused like that. But we have these moments, if we listen to music, where we are not in time. We are really in a completely different world. And if it's in that way flowing the energy between, or an exchange of energies between stage and the audience, then you will really make a completely other approach to music. And I would love to wish to everyone that everyone has a chance. So this is not an elite thing for me. This is really a basic experience which you need for your life.
There was a Tonhalle late earlier this year where Esa-Pekka Salonen conducted his violin concerto. Yeah. And I heard back from friends of mine in the orchestra that the night of the Tonhalle late, there was a very special energy that caused it to really be electrifying for them. And you don't maybe think that as a member of the audience, you're actually influencing the performance, but you actually can be. And they can sense when you're paying attention. They can sense when you're reacting to them. And this is a really, really, I know this as a performer myself, that a great audience really makes it. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. I think we are, whenever we perform, we're in a social situation, and whoever is there is part of that social situation and brings energy. So if we have people in the audience who even we see, moving, their bodies being available, that actually brings energy to the stage. If we have people who are, that's difficult to play in, because the energy it doesn't flow so much. So I think whatever happens in that space has an influence on what's happening. I was very happy what you said before about art. I mean, we are sometimes tempted to talk about classical music, but it's also jazz. It's a lot of wonderful high quality music and high quality social situations with music that will achieve that. But I mean, to come back to that, yes, absolutely. If people dance, there's a friend of mine in Holland is doing classical music raves. So there's dancing. There's real dancing going on. That's the point. They're like they get feedbacks of people being like, "This was the best party I've been to all year because we didn't know how to dance, and we had to discover in that moment." I think so. Classical music rave, Brendan Walsh.
Bill, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, the interaction between you're also a performer. You sing and play the guitar. Talk about that. What does the audience bring to your performance?
Well, We perform at school. So at the end of every year, we perform in a band, and it's called prom. Of course, most schools have it, and we play. Last year was a 50s rock and roll theme, and at the beginning we played some songs, and we were feeling it. It was pretty good. And then the first person got up to dance, and you felt the immediate change. You know, you felt engaged, you felt motivated, you felt like, oh my God, our music is being loved and appreciated, and we just wanted to keep on playing, keep on playing, keep on playing. And more people got up to dance, and it just went on, and it caught on fire. It was the best thing. It was one of the main moments in my life. And I think that is absolutely amazing. Well, another thing I would like to say is that music, it really overrides one of our senses, and I think that we should use music to, I think, bring across a message as well. For example, a message about social media. You know, there was this thing going around on Facebook and the internet a few years ago called "If You Look Up to the Sky," and it was using poetry and music to bring across a message about this person who was walking around town, and he had his phone, and he was looking at Google Maps, and he went past this girl, and he found his way to the own place. But there was another instance where he didn't have that phone, he had a map, and he couldn't find his way. And so he asked this girl for directions, and that's how he met his wife. And it just goes along, you know, what things would have happened if you would have looked up from your phone and you would talk to the people around you. You know, you could make amazing relationships with people, and it really inspired me to be more open and not just look at my phone. I think that we should use the music nowadays to bring across the message. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Also, I have a question for you people. How did you get into classical music? I know for us it was only 10 years ago, but for you it must have been 30, 40 years ago in some case. But yeah.
I started playing the violin when I was 4.5. I said, classical music. No, I just ended up there. And I started getting deeper and deeper into it. It's stories, you know. I mean, human beings are storytelling beings, and the stories that I found in classical music throughout the different periods of my life were, you know, they're my home. You know, that's where I feel at home. I feel at home in these stories by these composers from all over the world. This is my emotional home.
I grew up listening to pop rock music like everyone else, but my parents also introduced me to classical music, and particularly through the movie Fantasia, I fell in love with Beethoven's Sixth, and I got a recording, and also the Dvorak New World Symphony, and I found that there's more room in classical music. Pop music is so full, it's so intense, it's getting all the more intense now, the way that they're recording it. And you really don't have any freedom because it dictates everything to you. Whereas I found in classical music, I had room where I could come into the music and discover it for myself, listen to it. I had to listen to it rather than it being forced into me. And that it gave me freedom to, like you said, to find my own place. I tend to relate to music in terms of landscapes and pictures, and it was like exploring a country where I could go and see things and experience things and have my own engagement with the music that I couldn't have to the same degree in pop music. And so that's kind of has stayed with me. I still listen to and enjoy pop music a lot, but I come back to this music because it engages me more in that way.
I started at the age of 4, also with a recorder and some rhythmic playings and instruments. And then my grandfather took me to an opera production in Berlin, the Deutsche Oper. It was a Wagner production, so not easy. I was 5 years old, and we came through the artist's entrance backstage on the stage. And, you know, immediately I felt this dust, this special atmosphere, this senses. I was like, wow, what is that? And from that day on, it was clear for me it must be something that has to do with music and the arts. And started being a singer, damaged my voice. Now I'm a manager. So that's the very short version.
Well, I mean, for me, there has been always classical music in my house. My father composes and plays the piano. My brother plays the piano and also composes. And my second oldest brother also plays the piano and the guitar and the cello. And it's just growing up in that atmosphere where which nobody else has. I mean, not that I know anybody, where you really know this is my home. This is somewhere where I can really grow up and develop something. It's really something seminal there. You can really build up your own personality.
I got into classical music actually at a very young age, and I lost it in between because I started playing the piano at the age of 5, and I played a lot of classical stuff. I can't remember any of it by now, but I got into that till I was 9, and then my teacher got pregnant, and I stopped playing music at all. Kind of sad for that. And then I got into music again with 14. My parents just got me a guitar for no reason, and I started playing. And then coming to Hulls School and being to the Tonhalle late for the first time, and all these things, that's really the thing that got me into music at first, the classical music, the piano in the beginning, then I lost it completely. And coming back to Hulls School now and going to the Tonhalle really brought it back to me. Also brought a lot of childhood memories back, which I've forgotten.
Let's see. Anything else you would like to talk about? Why don't you talk about what do you do as an intendant? And this is this very interesting interface of arts and management, which few people in the world really even realize that this sort of job exists or what it entails. And it's a huge job, a very, very difficult job, and a big responsibility.
I think you must love people, you must love to talk to people, you must love to communicate, and you must be absolutely convinced that you need always the highest level of music. Then it's easy. I think it's an advantage if you have being on stage, if you know by yourself what it means being a singer or being a performer. It's much easier than changing to a professional manager job. But it's also possible doing this as an intendant or director without having own musical experiences. But then you need people around you who support you with these experiences, which you never made maybe by yourself. But I think it's for me, it's a dream position, I must say. And I'm completely convinced that we all together, like we're sitting here today, we have so many ambassadors, young ambassadors, and we need you. We need your statements. We need your really enthusiastic way of telling other people what you experienced, and this is the best way. And we need you on stage with everything what you are doing, and we need people like Etienne performing in different situations, but always on the highest level as well, combining things which are very unusual at the beginning. But at the end, I must say, we need teachers like you. We need in every institution responsible persons who think it's not lost, it's a way worth going forward. And it's a way to being convinced that everything what art can do is something which makes our future really better. And it's a single thing for everyone, a personal thing, but also for the whole society and community. And especially in a very globalized world, everyone needs a home. And this can give arts to you, a very personal home, which you even can share with your friends and with other wonderful people. And I must say, music is one of the best entrance tickets in the world to get in contact with other people. And it doesn't matter where you are from. I always was working in foreign countries as well, invited musicians, even in Iraq, for example, where everyone said, why are you going there? What are you doing there? We founded a youth orchestra there with classical instruments. It was an absolutely crazy project in 2011, but we got the feeling that we were at that time at the right place. And this is something which is absolutely astonishing what you can do. And so there's no limit. And this is my most important experience at the moment, that I feel there's no limit. And there's no situation or no direction where you could say this is the right way or this is the wrong way. No, we are all on the way. But the most important thing is that people are really attending music, that they're coming to concerts, that they are sharing their experiences, and that we don't lose them on that way. And so therefore I'm really thankful that you're taking over this great responsibility and really burning in that way, being enthusiastic by yourself, and really having this message that there's something which is really, really worth being there. And it's not a luxury, it's for everyone.
Just a final thought on that. One thing I tell my students, one great thing about music is that if I ask my students, could you go back to Vienna circa 1780? I said, no. I said, well, actually, you can, because we do have a time machine, and it's called classical music. You can go back and listen to Mozart and get a sense of how people thought, how they lived. This was not Mozart living in a cave writing something. This was Mozart fully engaged in his society. This is the way people thought. This is how they felt about the world. This was their experience of life. And you can understand history if you can understand music history. It's a tremendous window into the past. But another thing is I talk to them about the soundtrack of their life. Your life is, in a way, a story that you're creating all the time. And it has a musical soundtrack to it. It's the music you listen to. Don't stop listening to the music you love, but realize that you're limiting yourself. What I talked about earlier, that there was more room for me in classical music, and that it says things that are true about you and true about everyone that you also need to incorporate in what you listen to and how you define yourself through your music. Any final thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree. Again, I would add classical music and other music.
Yeah.
You know, this whole field of the arts, which is what we're looking at. I mean, we have different religions, and they all have this thing to offer. And combining these messages is something very, very essential for humanity. We have these different genres of music. They all have this incredible thing to offer, and to combining that is really something that I'm extremely interested in. Just one thing to add in the quest for quality, which I think is important. We should not forget that innovation happens in experimentation. In a biology lab, 10 things get tried out, 9 fail, 1 succeeds. But if we do not give the space for 9 to fail, we will not find the one that succeeds. So the quest for quality needs to be reflected on in a context of innovation when we talk about innovation, and it's a really interesting thing to do, and I think it has a lot of implications.
It's been a really fascinating discussion. I must say we could go on longer, but I think this has really been great. And thank you all for coming, Nikolai, Johannes, and Bill, and Etienne, and especially Frau Schmiel. And I would just say to everybody out there, take the plunge. If you're on the edge, just jump in. And by the way, classical music isn't one single thing. It's an enormous field of an incredible variety, some of which actually I don't even like. It's not as though you have to like all of it, but take a step, take a risk, as you said, try something. And we look forward to seeing you at concerts at the Tonhalle, and we look forward to seeing you back on the internet again sometime soon. Thank you very much.